And welcome back to session 4, where we're talking about Google Sites. The last time we left off, we spoke specifically about text boxes and images. In this session, I want to continue those skills, but I want to highlight content blocks. I introduced them briefly last session, but I never modeled exactly how they work. So let me first start by introducing actually the process of using content blocks. Let me head over into Newsletter. So I'm just going to change pages. It's irrelevant what page you're in, but I'm going to choose Newsletter as an example. And I'm going to scoot over here and I'm going to click on just a few of them. Here's the first one. You'll see how Google deposited that into Spot. And then I'm going to click on the next one. It will pop into spot number 2 just below this one. Because I'm in spot number 2 and it's illuminated, the next one I click on will be deposited into spot number 3. Let me go ahead and choose this one right here. If at any point I change my mind and I say, oops, just kidding, I don't want that, you always have the ability to scoot over here and you can choose the delete section at any time. You are not obligated to keep any of these. You can delete them as you see fit. Now I'm going to scoot up all the way to the first one. I'm just going to move in a sequential fashion. Right here, it's kind enough to say that you're supposed to click to edit text. So I'm going to, since this is the newsletter section, I'm going to model what it looks like to deposit various newsletters into this area. So let me start by putting a title in here. Very simple title, Newsletter August. If at any point you do not like the text that has been defaulted into that section, you can always come over to italicized or underline. You can change the font color. You can change the font size. You can also change the actual font style. So if you don't want 22, if you think 12 is a better fit, the only thing you need to pay attention to is you need to illuminate that text or cast a shadow on it in order for that change to take effect. So when I choose 10, it's now going to make it small. In my opinion, I think that's way too small. I'm just going to choose the undo button in order to take it back to that larger size. Because the text is illuminated, I can come over here and I can choose a different font if I so choose. In addition to that, I can come in over here in this next box. I can click one time and then I can add text to highlight what's going to happen when my user clicks on the item that I'm going to tuck into the box on the left. In order to showcase what that looks like, I just tucked a few ideas in there. Nothing important or meaningful, but I just typed in some information into that spot. Now I'm going to scoot over just to the left of where my text is so that I can deposit something into this filler. I'm going to call it a filler. It's a space letting me, the designer, know that something can be added to this space. And you have several different options to choose from. I'm going to click the plus symbol. And when I click the plus symbol, you'll notice how this menu appears. I can upload something from my computer. I can select an image from the internet. I can also choose something from Drive. If there's a YouTube video that I want added, I can easily just choose YouTube. If I want my entire Google Calendar on display so that people know where I am and what I'm doing, I can also add that as well. And then the last item down there would be maps. If I'm physically taking my audience to a location, if there's a field trip coming up and we're going to head over to the local bounce house place, if we're going to go to Defy, I can add that information in there if that is important. Let me go ahead and choose YouTube. And then after I choose YouTube, I'll swing back and then I'll explain to you what it looks like to add a newsletter, a PDF file from Google Drive. After clicking on YouTube, this particular box will appear and it will allow me to either drop a link in or I can search for specific content. So let's go ahead and see what happens when I choose an apple pie recipe. I'm going to type my phrase or my words into this space and then I'm going to press enter on the keyboard. When I do that, Google is going to search through YouTube to find content related to the words that I have supplied. I'm going to click right here on the very first one, and after I click the very first video, I'm going to choose select. After choosing select, the video is going to populate inside of that box and my users have access to that content. Now, let's pretend that you did not want to search YouTube, but you specifically had a link that you wanted to share with your audience. Let's pretend that you are teaching GATE students about 3D printing, and there is a specific video that you would like to share with those students. Let me open up this link in a new tab. I'm going to come right over here to the share button. I'm going to click share one time. I'm going to scoot over here and I'm going to choose copy. I want to be quite persnickety about the link that I get, because this link is going to be different from the link up here. I want one that's not cluttered with other information. I'm going to choose copy right here. After I choose copy, I'm going to head back to the area where I was designing my website. Let me click on this tab right here. Because I'm modeling a different strategy, I'm going to come over to the undo button and I'm going to get rid of my apple pie video. So I'm going to go back in time one spot so that I could start over again. Let me press the plus button right here. I'm going to go back to inserting YouTube, but this time instead of searching for a video inside of this box, I've already searched for a video. I've located that. Let me come in here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste the link that I just copied into this space, and then I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. Google was able to locate that exact video using the share link. I'm going to click right here one time. I'm going to scoot over here to select. When I click select, Google is going to put the video into that space. In our previous video, I talked to you about resizing objects. You can grab the bubble on either of those sides and adjust it. But I'll be honest with you, the size was absolutely perfect before I ever touched it. So in this particular situation, I didn't feel the need to really adjust it. However, in the future, if there is anything other than an image, for example, like a video, and you would like to resize it, you can. If there's a lot of content you need to put on that right-hand side, and you just don't have a lot of space for that video to take up its original square footage, then you can certainly adjust that as you see fit. You can also come in and adjust the words in those two sections as well to accommodate whatever your visual design happens to be. All right, just a moment ago, I also said that I wanted to talk to you about inserting a newsletter, and there's one persnickety detail about sharing newsletters that is so paramount. This is the one thing that's going to trip you up if things go sour. For the newsletter in today's tutorial, I went to Adobe. Adobe had some templates. I wanted to save myself some time, and then I just grabbed a template that was already on there, and I was able to download that, and I uploaded it to Google Drive. If you designed a newsletter inside Microsoft Word, for example, you can save that as a PDF and then drop it here into Google Drive. Now, anything in Google Drive technically is yours and it's not available to the entire world. But the minute you put your newsletter on your website, you want the world to see it. And I don't really mean like the world, like the whole world. I just mean your parent community or your school community. But Google has locked down that resource because it's yours and you're the one who has to open up those permissions so your audience can see that resource. Let's go ahead and unlock it, and then we will drop that into your website. Let me scoot over here for a second. Technically, you can still drop your newsletter in here even though it's not visible to the world. However, let me warn you, you are going to have some parents who are going to email you and say, I'm so sorry, the newsletter you want me to see is not available to me. So it's going to look successful at first, but then it's going to go sour for your parents. So please remember to unlock this resource so your parents can see it. All right, let me scoot back into Google Drive. On this resource, I'm going to right-click one time. After I right-click one time, I want to choose Share because I want to open up the sharing permissions. After I choose Share, this box will appear. And then right down here where it says Share with Clovis Unified School District, and it also says Restricted, that's where I want to change those permissions. So let me click right here one time. And then after I click right there, I want to make sure that the world can see this. So I'm going to use the drop down arrow right here next to Clovis Unified, and I'm going to say anyone with the link. Let me click right there one time. So anyone with the link is a viewer. I don't want to grant other people permission to edit it. I only want them to be able to view it. So let me click right here one time so they can comment or edit or view. In my opinion, I'm always going to leave it as a viewer, especially if it's a newsletter for a website. In other situations, I do want people to edit things, but not today, not this resource. In order to save your changes, go ahead and click up at the top to get to that main options panel, and then click the Done button located right here. Now that I've changed those permissions, I'm going to scoot over here where it says Mrs. Henry. I'm going to click one time. I'm going to scoot down the screen because I want to adjust something that's farther down. I'm going to click right here on the plus symbol one time. In addition to clicking the plus symbol one time, I want to grab something from Google Drive. So I'm going to choose this option. After I choose from Google Drive, over on the right-hand side, I'm going to see a snapshot of some of the resources inside Google Drive. Up at the top, you have different places to browse. You can go to My Drive. You can go to Shared Drives. You can also go to Shared with Me. Otherwise, your folders will show up on display right here. You can quickly look for a resource by using the magnifying glass up here, if that happens to be the fastest way for you to locate that resource. I know that it's inside my sample folder, and then inside my sample folder, it's inside the 6th grade folder. That's the organizational strategy that I used. The other pathway I can use is using the little magnifying glass right here, and then I'm going to type in sample newsletter, and I'm going to press enter on my keyboard, and you'll notice how the newsletter has appeared right here. In order to apply it into that adjacent space, I'm going to double click on this specific item, the newsletter. And after just a small amount of time, you'll notice how that item appears inside of this box. Likewise, in the last area, we had the ability to add a title and some information, and you can either apply information into this space, or you can use the little trash can to get rid of this text box. It's up to you. Likewise, on the bottom one, right down here, you have the ability to add text, or you can use the little trash can to get rid of that specific box. Again, it's completely up to you. So if you want, like for example, the January newsletter to be in position 1 and the February newsletter to be in position 2, then it's up to you. So you can apply each of those resources here. Now, let's go ahead and choose the visibility option right up here. Once I've selected the visibility option, I have the ability to see what it would look like for my audience to come here. I'm not done with box number 2, and I haven't placed anything into these items down here, but you'll notice how the newsletter is here. For my audience to clearly see the newsletter, I would encourage my audience to choose this little arrow up here in order for it to open in an adjacent tab. That way they have the ability to see the entire document all at once. It may take just a short period of time for it to queue up, for it to buffer and load properly, but the users can then look at that document in the adjacent tab. Likewise, they have the ability to print or download this resource if that is important to them. One last item to mention. I strongly recommend that you as the user go into the guest option over here on the right hand side. When you click your profile, right here where it says guest, only if your website has been published, it's a good opportunity to scoot over here to confirm that the newsletter is absolutely visible by your audience. My website is not published because I'm using it as a tutorial. However, head over to guest and then confirm that your audience can see what that resource looks like before you direct them to click on the newsletter. Team, thank you so much for joining me for today's tutorial, and have a great day.